Hello friends, welcome to Clarify Decode. Today we will look at a scenario where you are given a website or an application and you need to have a capacity estimation for it. Okay, it's a very common scenario for already developed applications as well. You would think what should be its limit. It's a frequent interview question as well. And whenever you are designing an application, you should have these in mind. So let's get started. So the first point is very obvious. It's whenever we have an application, we will have users, right? So the first point is user estimation. You need to estimate the number of users that would be interacting with your application, okay, on a daily basis over a period of time. So here the demarcation would be daily active user. Many a times you will hear this word DAO. Okay. The second thing you need is, okay, you may have 10,000 users, but how frequently they are logging into your system. Okay. In terms of how active they are. So the second thing would be you have to think about concurrent users and logging pattern I was saying, right? So you have to think something in terms of when they log in. Is there a pattern? Is there a sale season coming up? Do they log in more on the weekday, weekend? Those kinds of value you have to keep in your mind. So you have to say user behaviors patterns. Okay. So you have to estimate the peak users. I would say here it's called the peak in terms of concurrent users. Let's say an example of 10,000 users are there. So you should know what is your peak users or concurrent users that will come. It may be like 5,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever. But you should know this in estimation. Okay. This will help to ensure that your system can handle peak traffic and also normal traffic. Fine. So this is very obvious. The value part I will make another session. Okay, if we know we have 10,000 users, how many hosts would be required, what should be the ideal load balancing thing, what should be the configuration of machines, how do we handle such load, and if it is in millions, what do we do? So I will try to put it as a value in the next session, okay, for this series. Fine. For now, I am just going with the high level categories and the subcategories we should think of, because anyways the calculation we can do very well at our side. Let's go to the second point. Can you think of it? Okay, so you have 10,000 users and the peak user as of now is 1,000 user, but what are they doing? Okay, they would be interacting with you in terms of what? Requests, right? How many requests they are sending. Okay, two major points here it would come. It would be the requests per second and queries per second. So requests of a page will internally call some queries if there are some database calls or some API calls, whatever. But the broader point is request per second. Okay, and query per second. We can say it above the user aspect, it is the traffic coming from the users. So 1000 users are logged in, but they're making so many requests going into a lot of your pages, a lot of API calls. Okay, so you have to think total number of requests and also the query per seconds, request per second and query per second. Once you have this, you would be able to prevent what? You would be able to prevent bottlenecks, because high number of requests per seconds, high number of query per seconds, if it is not handled properly, it would lead to bottlenecks in your system, either at the DB level or at the application level, but it would be there. Fine. Let's look at the third point. So now we have talked in terms of what? Count of users and traffic. Okay, but each thing also correlates to the data, right? If we have many users, they would be sitting in a table, how much data in the DB they would be taking. There are n numbers of booking they are creating, so the DB would also be growing. Okay, so what I'm trying to mean is the storage estimation. Storage estimation. Okay, so you have to think how big your infrastructure should be, how big your DB should be. Do you need some vertical or horizontal scaling to accommodate this? It will also be a projection. Okay, 10,000 users are taking such amount of data, and you see your app is growing by 10% each quarter. So you have to think, how should I scale the storage estimation? Okay, and you should be also thinking in terms of what kind of data it is coming. Okay, because the storage part would be different for different kinds of entities, right? You may have some transactional data. Okay, you would store it differently. You may have some like media, and you may have some logs and other points. I hope you get it. What I'm saying is, you need to have the storage estimation for different entities. Each can grow independently. Okay, maybe you're logging everything in a server, and that server gets crashed because you're logging very verbose kind of things and you didn't estimate for it. So, just a recap: user estimation, traffic estimation, and storage estimation. What else, guys? So what do we have in a machine? Okay, we have CPU, RAM, storage at the most highest layman level, I would say. Storage we dealt, right? Then we should think of RAM, RAM estimations. It's all part under the infra estimation. But if you are doing something like caching, okay, you have to think, will my in-memory caching lead to some issues over a period of time? How big my cache is? Am I deleting my caches well enough? What is my cache size? If I have something like session data in my memory, am I well prepared to handle such high amount of session data? Okay, so this is in terms of reducing, I would say, latency. It helps a lot, but everything you are tying it to the RAM. So when you have cache systems, you should always think of the capacity estimation for good RAMs. Okay, so we told CPU, RAM, and storage. So let's come to the CPU part. How do we estimate what kind of CPU do we need? It depends upon a lot of things in the code. Like if you have concurrent calls going on, what is your CPU load per request? It's at the very minute level, but this also can be calculated, because let's say you have 10,000 users and your CPU is 50%. We don't need to go like in terms of very low level, but we can get an idea. Okay, so when my users would be like 15,000, what do we expect our CPU to be? Can it be this somewhat or not? Of course, it depends on a lot of factors, but you have to take a benchmark and think about the CPU. Okay, these are like pretty easy to understand. CPU, RAM, and storage. You just need to think about it in terms of the value, which I would deal in a separate session. One important factor apart from this in software engineering is the network part. Okay, the network part, let's have a look on it, what we can do about it. So we have to see in terms of what do we have in our network. Are we communicating a lot of big data? Big data in terms of size, like we are making calls, serializations and deserializations, and transferring everything at the byte level. What kind of data we have? Okay, based on that we have to think about a daily bandwidth. Okay, this level of data is traveling for my application on a daily level. So here generally people will talk in terms of daily bandwidth. Okay, so 10,000 users, out of them 1k are active on a day. 1k users, okay, maybe they are going with 1200 sessions, and one sessions when they are interacting they are transferring around 5 MB of data. So what it would be, 1200 into 500 MB would be my daily bandwidth as an estimation, and then you need to estimate at a higher level for this. Okay, and whenever we are estimating, if you are in an interview or in your or you are in a real position, always think about scalability and growth that will happen of your application. You have to have a buffer in terms of users growth. You cannot plan at the last moment, okay, my website has suddenly boomed and I need some more capacity. It cannot go like that, right? You have to have some buffer in terms of user growth. You can predict, and then user translates to traffic, translates to storage, translates to network bandwidth, translates to CPU, RAM, everything. So if you know your user growth, it's very easy. Okay. Maybe if you're changing something in terms of data, like you're having some archive data, you're having new functionality where you keep up data. Okay. So you can also think in terms of data growth. Fine. Overall, I think we have discussed the high levels. Okay. I think I've discussed 7 points. So this would be 8. What else? I think overall we have done, but let's see the advantages of this. Okay. Why do we do capacity estimation? If we will do capacity estimation, we can have a very good performance optimization. Okay. Because our network would not be under stress, so it would be always performant. And even if the load is growing up, we have already done our part for it. We have the options for scalability. Okay. That means we are ready to scale. If we know how a system is behaving in terms of all these above factors, and the business says, okay, we expect next quarter, next year, we are going 5x in terms of users. You don't need to calculate everything and have a benchmark at that moment. You already know, okay, this is what we would require. Fine. And also in terms of cost efficiency, many a times in smaller organizations, startups, even in enterprise level, if it is not monitored very well, we have a lot of capacity that is going for waste. Okay. We have spent so many servers, we have so much free space in the DB, but still we are adding, just thinking it will improve the performance, but the issue was something else. But if we have the capacity estimation values, all these above values, it will help forward. And the biggest advantage would be your users would be happy with your website. Okay, let's do a quick recap, team. I'll just go on the headings. Estimate in terms of users, concurrent users, daily active users, then the traffic that they generate in terms of requests and DB calls, storage, RAM, CPU, daily bandwidth, it's the network part, scalability, we are well ready for that, and we know the advantages. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope I will make a video soon for in-depth things to go about the capacity, like what should be the query per second, or if I have a million users, how much infra do I really need? Okay, how many machines I need with a particular configurations, and a talking terms of capacity planning with the actual values and some live examples. So stay tuned with our channel. We try to provide contents which are like very generic and easy to understand irrespective of the programming language. We do have some specific videos for programming language stuff like .NET, Java, Kubernetes, Azure. Stay tuned, guys. I hope you will benefit from this.